Hello, my name is Schuyler Smith and I do technical sales and support here at Apogee Instruments. And today we're going to do a quick start video for how to connect your PQ500, PQ510, which is the SQ500SS with the AT100, which is the microCache Bluetooth logger. So in this video, we're going to cover the ApogeeConnect app download, the Apogee Connect and connecting to the microCache, and then making sure your sensor is set up correctly in the app. And then we're going to go over setting up logging to the microCache logger, and then how to collect those logs after you've come back to the sensor. So the first thing is the app. This is what the app looks like. Over here you can see the iOS when you search for ApogeeConnect, and then over there is the Google Play, what it will look like there. So go ahead and download that to your phone or tablet. Next up, this is the quick start guide that we include with the microCache and the sensor. And so if you've lost that, you can just pause on this screen and you can look at these directions. We're going to go through each one of these. And then this page is the quick start guide on how to set up logging, how to begin logging the first time. And then over here we're going to do the quick start guide to collecting logs from the microCache after it's been logging, and how to go out and get that. So again, you're welcome to pause on the video to review those. And now we will do a demonstration. Give that a second to come up. All right, so right here you can see we have an iOS device, and we've just opened the ApogeeConnect app. So this is what yours will look like the first time you come into it. So the first thing we want to do is get the microCache advertising. So we hold down the green button for 3 seconds, it starts blinking blue, and then nothing happens over here until we hit add. So we hit add up in the corner, and then now it comes up. It says UC 1080. So we look on the back of this, it says 1080. So we know that's the correct one. We click on it, and then it's going to come up and it says SP110. We don't have an SP110, we have an SQ500. So we need to change that, and we start by clicking on Choose Model. And then when we're here, we're going to scroll down until we find the SQ500. We're going to click on him. Okay. He does not have a custom calibration. It's the standard calibration for the SQ500. And then if we want to rename him, if we're expecting a couple, we can name him whatever we want, but we can just put home on here for now. And then we can hit add. So we've changed the name to home. We're showing on this screen now that it's connected, and then here not logging. So if we come in here after it's not connected and open up Apogee Connect, we'll see an X through connected. So now that we're here, we can go into this sensor. All right, and the first thing we see is that we are reading accurate values right there, and we can get that to increase or decrease just by changing it. Okay? And then if we want to go to live meter mode, we can click right there, and it is updating our live meter as we speak. And then if we want to collect the data, we can record the current value just by clicking here, and it's going to record that in the table below. And then again, this table updates based on the amount of light that we're shining on it. Now you can see that it's a very fast updating right now. If we wanted to average out that live sample data, we can do that under settings, and we'll show you that here in a second. Now it is important to note that on this graph, it does go away if I click back and go to a different screen. And so it's only live meter right now as you're looking at it. It's not saving this graph anywhere else. So this is perfect for going around doing spot measurements and seeing how the light changes depending on where we move that sensor around. So now let's talk about setting up logging as well as various settings we can go into. So the first thing, settings, we don't have a custom calibration. We can rename it here. If we didn't like home, we want to name it something else. We don't need to worry about dark offset calibration with this sensor. And this is logging enabled. We're going to come back here and enable this here in a second. Water correction. This is what you want to turn on if you're using this underwater in aquarium and coral reef applications. And so you turn on that correction factor, which then turns this into the equivalent of reading the same as like an MQ510 that we offer. You can have notify when full, when you're logging your data points. It can log up to 400,000 data points. And so, but if you're doing it for a long time in the field, you can click that. This is that setting we mentioned before, live data averaging. Currently it's averaging samples over 1 second and reporting that, but you can see that you can increase this up to as high as 30 seconds on that live data averaging. And then we have some information down here, the hardware version, the firmware version, and then sensor time. Now you're always going to want to match current time when you get in here to do this. And then that way it matches the time in here that's logging the time date stamps, and then to what your phone is. So that way when you go to collect the logs later, those numbers are already set and matched. And then update sensor firmware. You're welcome to, the first time you get that, to click on that. You just, when you're connected to it, you click start. It will go ahead and check itself. It's now a red LED. It's going through. You can see it's seeing if it's updating it to the latest version that's available to it. Then it's completed, and then you're going to see it blink blue, and now he's back connected. So that's a quick process as needed. So let's go back up here to setting up logging. So, I'm sorry, we went over dark threshold. Dark threshold right here, okay? So the dark threshold means what you're willing, how much light you're willing to hit the sensor and still say, and say that it is dark. Some people are willing to go up to 2 micromoles or 2.5 micromoles. Some people need it less than that. So you can change that dark threshold to whatever you want, which is important when you're logging your daily light integrals and your photo periods. So you can move that around to what you want, but it comes standard at 0.5 micromoles per meter squared per second. All right, logging enabled. So we slide logging enabled on, and then it comes up as 10-minute logging interval and 1 minute sampling. So that means that in this example, it will take 10 readings because it's doing 1 every minute, and then every 10 minutes it's logging it. So 1 reading every minute, and then it will average all 10 of those and log that data. So we recommend 15 minutes for our logging interval, and then your sampling interval will give you equivalents of that out to here. So you can do every 2.5 minutes for sampling. Now the reason that we encourage 15-minute logging period is because it affects the battery life. By having a 15-minute logging average, if you're just going for the daily totals of light, your battery is going to last 9 months to a year, depending on other conditions, temperature and stuff. But if we go logging interval all the way down to less than 10 seconds, sampling intervals less than 10 seconds will decrease battery life. So, and that can decrease it all the way down to a week, down to weeks instead of months. So you definitely want to make sure that your logging and sampling interval is set up for whatever your application is, but just know it will take a toll on the battery if it is too quick. So let's get this out to a minute or so. Okay, and then we have to hit save down here. Once we hit save, now it's saved in there, okay? And it says we started right here, and it will be filled by 2032. So we have quite a ways before our data will be filled. All right, so now our logging is enabled, okay? And so because we did a firmware update, it came through and it gave us this big number, but we know that those logs are not correct, so we want to clear the logs. So we clear logs down to 0. Okay, so now it currently has 0 logs to gain. But how do we set it up for filled logging the first time once we want to collect logs? So we click on collect logs, and then we come here to create new, which is what it automatically comes on. And then new data set, right here, we can rename that whatever we want. And then we do the start time and the end time down below. And these should be auto-filled because the start time is when he enabled logging, and then end time is the current time. And then you just hit collect logs. Well, right now there's 0, okay? And so down below it is giving us that there is no data collected, and so our graphs down here have not been updated. So for our demonstration, we will grab this PQ500 we have right here, and we'll bring it over. Okay, so it's the same sensor and microCache. So on this screen, we're going to hold down until it blinks blue. Hold down the green button until it blinks blue. Then we will add it, searching for devices. So Schuyler's yard, because that's the experiment I was running. I was looking for the best spot for a garden in my yard. So we can connect to this. It remembers that it's an SQ500, but since it's the first time on this phone, it's asking me if it's correct. I say add. Okay. And we can see that our micromole value is very similar since they're right here both on the platform. So let's go into it. And we can see logs available for collection is 7. Okay. And down here it has never collected logs, and so we don't see any data down here. Now I'm going to collect logs, and so again it's the first time on this phone. So I'm going to create new, and I'm going to call it 2020 garden. So we can just rename that right there. Okay. And then it's start time and end time. Now, because I just connected it, the start time says 2:15. However, I know that the data goes all the way back to April. But for sake of time, I just want to collect about a week's worth of data. So we'll go back to Tuesday, June 9th, and let's go to midnight. So get that to 12:00 a.m. Okay, so we set that. So that's our start time, end time, and then we're going to collect logs. Okay, and it jumped from 7 that it had been collecting within the last couple minutes to 2,000. Okay, so once it's done downloading all of this data, it's going to auto-populate down here, and this is going to give us our micromoles per day down here, and then this is going to give us our moles per day, or our DLI, daily light integral, and then our photo period is going to be here. So just takes a little while. It's already halfway through, and then we will see the data pop up underneath. Okay, so we can see right here, a couple days it's been in the office. Before that, it was out in the yard. We can see some beautiful clear days, and then we can see some rainy days out in my yard. And then down here is the real gem, where we can see our DLI values, and we can say we're between 40 and 50 moles per day for the place that I'm going to put my tomatoes in the ground. And then down here we can see the photo period, which is just about 16 hours a day currently right now in June for Logan, Utah. Now, anytime after this that I want to collect logs, I'm going to collect logs, I'm going to append existing, and then I'm going to hit collect logs. Okay? And it said 0 because we have 0 right now, but in a couple minutes it will have another log and then another. And so from this point on, I just want to collect logs, I just want to append to existing, and then collect logs, and then it will automatically update these graphs below. And then if I want the data, so I can view the data, and then right here is that share button. So I can export it out to myself and email all that data, so then I can analyze it under my own Excel sheet as needed. So with that, that concludes our quick start video. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at techsupport@apogeeinstruments.com. Thank you.